I appreciate the opportunity, unfortunately, to revisit the question of anti-Semitism and the Jewish day school landscape. And it was almost like looking back at an innocent time, I'm sorry to say, to think about the Pittsburgh experience, which is what I wrote about, the proximity of my experience to the 3 congregations that were massacred in the Tree of Life building, which is around the corner from my house. At that time, I definitely had it in the context of, well, I'm not surprised. I'm a child of Holocaust survivors. This is going to happen periodically. The big difference was the feeling that the world and the communities and the rational universe were very empathetic and sympathetic to what happened to the Jews in our community. And since that time, there's been a steady drumbeat of attacks on Jewish organizations, other religious organizations, civilian locations, stores. So almost looking back at the shooting in 2018 and then realizing in 2021 what was happening with the Jews being identified as a marginalized minority that does not warrant the same support and sympathy as any other marginalized minority. It's not like rumors or reports, we're seeing with our own eyes what's going on, and people are still judging so differently the experience of what happens to Jews and what happens to anyone else. So that upsurge is terrifying around the world. The movement to the right-wing extremism, the movement to anti-immigration, and the underpinnings of democratic progress seem to be being shaken and breaking. It is very evocative of the pre-Hitler march towards fascism and Nazi supremacy, and it feels very close. So I find myself struggling with, when do you decide that you can't live where you're living anymore, and all those things. And it doesn't feel like an extreme reaction of a Holocaust child. It feels like pretty rational thought. In terms of the question about, can we imagine something positive coming out of this upsurge? I see tiny, rays of light, which are kind of maybe very temporal, maybe very temporary, maybe very politically expedient, but things like universities in America, campuses being held to account for how they allow hate speech. I think that the government is trying to have a strategy for anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. What we have done at our school, at Community Day School in Pittsburgh, is really reach out to the week after this attack, the massacre happened. We reached out to our alumni who are in high school, who are still in the community nearby, but not at our school. We imagine that they might be feeling isolated, alone, overwhelmed by the lack of a conversation that would be supportive in their high schools. So we just said, come over for pizza, after school. We're happy to be with you. And 30 kids showed up and pretty much were able to articulate, what was or was not happening in their high school, and that they came to their Jewish day school because that was their Jewish home. And I think that was a powerful moment for us to realize how isolated our alumni were feeling, and how important it was to, even if we're not explicitly teaching to this topic, the children who are in our schools are feeling Jewishly supported. And they're seeing, we were one of the schools that was able to welcome, we had about 16 Israeli kids coming who had to be relocated due to what was going on. And those actions, included all our students in feeling like they were part of this international Jewish community that supports one another and supports Israel, especially during this awful time. As a school leader, 2 things really are clear. So one is that doubling down on being Jewish, that's what Jewish day schools are very, very good at. We fortify students with who they are, that they value it. It becomes something worth fighting for, instead of something that surprises you with, like, why am I hated? One of our big missions is to just make sure that students leave understanding what it means to be Jewish, and the beauty of it, and the timelessness of it, and how we have been able to withstand all these relentless attempts to destroy us. And the other piece is this clarity of, we have, our school has 2/3 of our staff are not Jewish, not familiar with the situation in the way that many Jews are. And their discomfort with what is going on now, you have to understand when you come work at a Jewish day school, for us, we've stated that the Jewish people need a Jewish state, need a Jewish homeland, and then everything else can be discussed. Like, is the government doing the right thing? Are we existing in a way that is true to the democratic values that have been stated? All of those are true. But if you say that Israel is doing so wrong that it shouldn't exist, which is basically anything that determines that Palestinian rights should take them across the river to the sea, that there's not indigenous rights that Jews have the same as Arabs who have lived there for as long as Jews have. Those seem to be the lines that we have to really stand on. Do the Jews deserve a place that is a state, that has an army, that has a government? I think that's where people have to put a stake in the ground. I appreciate that that we're revisiting this as educators, and hopefully we can all learn from each other and share what we're able to do in our schools to strengthen this mission that we clearly have in front of us.